Hey guys, Matt here, doing this video. So there's been a lot of nostalgia going around lately on the internet. I think it's because of all the quarantine. Um, the thing I kind of came across recently was an old drawing I did in high school. Now this was back right before I started taking drawing seriously. I think it's the time when I started transitioning into taking it seriously. So I wanted to get into doing game design on this time. So here it is. This is terrible. And what I wanted to do is actually do a redraw of this because after, man, I drew this, it must have been about 12 years, more or less. And over the 12 years, I've been working on getting to be a better artist. I'm still learning. I still feel like I still have a lot to learn, and my drawing isn't maybe the greatest, I would say, but it's gotten a lot better, like way better than this. So I just want to do this redraw here. So what I did was I already got this set up here in Photoshop here, and I basically, because it was drawn like on an 8x11 kind of sketchbook, so I stretched it out because I wanted to do this more tight, where it's less height and more width kind of deal. So here I'm doing the first thing that I do always is blocking out where the character's going to be and doing like this kind of really rough sketch, no detail or anything. This is just to work on the pose and to figure out where the characters are going to go. The rule I came up with myself for this is that I get to stick to what I drew as close as possible. I can make some slight changes. Obviously, I don't want to stick with, completely stick with what I had before. I'm already making changes where like I'm actually going with more updated looks for the characters. So I was okay with making some slight changes, but it's going to be as close to what I originally drew as possible. So now I'm doing Ryu again, just doing some quick sketch, nothing fancy here. This was one of the changes I made. So Regan is actually in the kind of in the same pose as Ryu, and I didn't like it. So, and that's what I'm drawing, by the way. I'm drawing Ryu and Regan and Saber. I didn't like how they basically just standing completely straight like Ryu was. So, and then I also changed his weapon. So, Regan is a weapons master. He has the ability to create metal, and what he does is he creates whatever metal weapon he wants. Sword, axe. His signature attack though is to create like a metal spike and then like kind of hurl it. He does that in the short story, so I decided just to go with that. So that way they're all having like a different weapon. So now what I'm doing is I am drawing out the this is where I start adding in detail. It's another rough sketch, but now using what I already had, now I'm drawing over that and drawing drawing the pose again, but with detail. So now I'm gonna know where the shirts are, where the pants are, like where the bagginess is, where like this piece of armor is, where this cape is, that kind of deal. And then the thing I actually ran into an issue with was Saber's leg here, the one he's kind of kneeing on. Originally had like this where he was kind of stand up a little bit, but it didn't make sense with the rest of the pose. So I had a lot of difficulty trying to get it to look right and also make it to where it makes sense with the camera, like where the camera is on, like where you're looking at. It says you look at it, just didn't make any lot of sense to me. It didn't look good. So I was fighting with that leg a lot, as you'll see here, and I'm just kind of right now I'm actually making an adjustment to that other leg here, so I can redraw this and then move that leg up there. Man, that leg hated me. And I also had to make sense with where the sword was. I couldn't have the sword way down at all. It didn't make a lot of sense to me either. I wanted to have it level as possible with the feet, obviously. The sword is actually something that I had already drawn. Same with Saber. So I originally drew Saber in this part of the story. He had, he's basically close to what I had drawn for Tana, and this was the outfit that's supposed to be going to Tana. But what he had didn't make sense, so I actually had to take off a lot of armor and then draw it towards more close to what Tana wears. Tana makes a lot of alterations when she wears it, so I was fine with it being not completely the same. And then same with Ryu here. Actually, I didn't have it drawn at all, unfortunately. When I had drawn concepts for this part of the story, I didn't get around to Ryu. I don't know why. So I just took, but I already knew that he was wearing like kind of monk-looking clothes, like a kind of like a karate gear, or like a gi, pretty much, or yeah, more like a gi. So he's basically kind of like a monk in a way. So I basically, and that's what I'd already drawn originally. So I just took what I drew originally, just added a lot of detail to it, as you're gonna see here. So I'm concepting out Ryu as I'm drawing this, actually. Trying to figure out what he's gonna look like, what the detail on the thing. It's close to where I had, but I just added detail to it. So change the shoes up, because I think in the original he was wearing sandals. I mean, I didn't like that. And then here I'm just moving Saber down, so it's close. I'm not going for exact, but so the feet are, you know, where Saber's feet to where Regan's feet are, or Regan's, sorry, where Ryu's feet are, makes more sense. And then Regan here I also had drawn out already. I made, I think, some slight changes to his arms. I was looking back at the drawing. I couldn't tell what I drew. Actually, I was like, I couldn't tell what that is. I didn't know. So I just kind of made some changes to it, to where he's wearing like this big kind of elbow pad thing. And then I was drawing pants, and then I realized that after I drew the pants that he actually was wearing boots. So I had to go back and fix that. That's a great thing about this here, especially this part, is that if I need to make a quick change, I can make a quick change, and I don't have to go back, and I don't have to go back a long ways, because right now I'm still like nothing's really set in stone just yet, you know. Once I start coloring is when it starts more set in stone. And then right here I'm actually just fixing the arm here, which is great. That's the other thing I love about digital, is that if I make a mistake with like proportions or anything like that, like where the arm's supposed to be or something like that, I don't have to go back, and I don't have to erase it and draw it again or something like that. Like, I can literally just highlight it, move it to where it makes more sense, and then just kind of redraw slightly so the lines make sense, so the lines match up. And I think the pose for Regan, the one I chose, actually works really well, because it doesn't make it makes him different, because, you know, Saber's already in a crouching pose, so it didn't make sense for Saber to be in this one pose, and then for Regan and Ryu to be basically just standing straight forward. You know, it made a lot of sense to me. Back then, it was because, one, I didn't get, you know, 2D. I didn't get 3D per se, and I was always focused on like what it looked like from the front, not too much in the back, you know, or the side or anything. I just wanted to see like the front. That's all I cared about, I think, back then, I think. So at this point, I actually made a huge mistake at this point, and I actually made a mistake basically going into this. I didn't realize it until about this point. But so the lines are really thick, and I'm using a small paintbrush, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And I realized I was actually drawing with a 72 resolution rather than a 300 resolution. So I had to I basically skipped over this part. I didn't record myself doing it, but I basically redrew everything because when I when I upscaled it to the 300 resolution, it blurred out the lines that I drew, so I had to go back and draw over it again. And then I already had painted Saber because I thought maybe it was going to be okay, and it was going to be okay. So what you're seeing now is me just kind of going back to where I was before. And I also did make some changes to like where the circles were too. I fixed the circles. I didn't like how the circles looked originally. So I actually drew one perfect circle and I just copied it. I mean, I'm doing digitally, so I can, you can get away with stuff like that. And it looks good, it looks more uniform, to be honest. Instead of trying to draw, however many circles, like 16 circles, perfectly, and it's not gonna look all the same. Now some of them I did make, so like the ones at the ends, because as it's going up, it starts to kind of turn, so I can't just have however many of 16 copied and then it just doesn't look right. So when I got to the end, I would actually like change up a little bit, or I would like I would go into like transform mode and then kind of shrink it down and things like that, and rework it a little bit. And then I would just kind of, if it still doesn't look right, I would just draw it over again, just to make it look where I need it to look. So it makes it look like it's it's wrapping around Saber's leg there. So what I'm doing right now is I am doing something where I'm so used to doing it, it doesn't bother me that much. It's really tedious, but I'm basically filling in the color myself, filling in all the lines. Now I know there's an easier way of doing this, and I did start doing it, but I'm still in the habit of keeping to doing it, where I take the pen tool and I trace along where I drew as best I can, and then I just kind of paint bucket fill it, and then but I still have to, there's still parts that aren't filled in. I have to go back and just brush it in, and I find it so much easier just to stick with one tool. I'm not switching back and forth, because it's a pain in the butt to like, to me it's kind of like, it's super tedious as well, just to circle it, make the selection, fill it, back to the pen tool, circle it, selection, paint tool, going back to all these different tools. And whereas where I'm doing this, it's like I have one tool, I'm just using the brush tool, so I know there's other programs that do stuff where like it automatically fills it in, you don't need to do anything. It just knows like where your lines are and fills it in. Like I think Illustrator does that, and I know that there's another program I use on my phone that does it, kind of, to the most part. The nice thing is it does do it, but there are some times where it doesn't do it at all because it doesn't see a connected line, so it'll like paint outside there. Photoshop doesn't do it at all. I wish it did, but I get it. It's not really a painting. It's not really made for painting per se. Like you can use it for painting, which is great, and I've been using Photoshop for years, but it's just that's why it's so hard for me to go it's so hard for me to go outside of that, outside of anything and use any other kind of program. So here is the sword, and you're probably wondering why it's all beat up. So this is a sword that Saber makes with Master Zen, and so at this point in the story he gets a new outfit. The outfit he's wearing now is a new one. Before he's wearing like a trench coat and some other stuff, but so he gets a new outfit, the one that looks more this is where he starts to wear the flex armor and stuff, but he keeps his sword, but he's also not taking care of it for story reasons. I'm not going to get into that, but he's just, it's not taking care of it. So and that was a good opportunity, because I like doing grunge. It does kind of break up the monotony of doing the stuff I normally do, because the stuff I normally do, when it looks all pristine, you're not really doing much, and it's the only thing that makes it look interesting is detail, not much in terms of coloring. But when you do grunge, not only are you doing your base, not only am I doing my base color and my lighting stuff, but I'm also doing like a grunge layer as well, so I'm adding some like grunge to it, and even when I'm drawing it, I'm drawing like pieces missing, and so it was a fun time. And I kind of add some grunge to Ryu's staff. The only weapon in the you'll see later, but the only weapon that doesn't get grunge is Regan's spike, and that's only because that it's something he just creates. He creates it so it has to look new and pristine and stuff. Because once he uses it, it's gone pretty much too. So yeah, so Saber's not taking care of it. Ryu's is just used. It's an old staff, so I had to make it look used, not beat up, just used. So there's some, I basically made it to where you're only gonna see here a little bit. So here I got to Ryu's face, and I realized that there was some changes that need to be made. The eyebrow wasn't where I wanted it to be, so I moved it up, and then because of the eyebrow and the skin there, skin color are all on one layer. The base color is all just part of the base layer. So I circled around it, moved it, and then I had to go back and repaint the area that was kind of cut a little bit. And I also saw that the eye wasn't exactly where it needed to be, so I again circled it, moved it up, and again that's why I love digital. And then I started doing black for the eyes because Ryu is from the Empire, but so that would make sense as why he had black. But I was like, wait a second, but he has he's light. So after I drew it, I was like, oh, wait, shit, he's got light powers. It wouldn't make sense for him to have black eyes if he has light powers. So I had to go back and actually draw it like gray, not white. I'm not gonna do white, so I did like a really light gray. So Regan is supposed to be blind, and if you read the books, you'll understand that. And how he sees is because he's blind. Before he gets his powers, he was kind of using his other senses to kind of understand where he's at. He masters his other senses, so he doesn't really need his sight. But then once he gets his steel powers, he actually figures out that he can actually, because he's blind, he actually has the ability to see with his steel powers. So it's kind of like everything looks all metallic, but he's still able to see. He's just not able to see like color or anything. Just everything's just metallic looking. So which he feels it's better than nothing. He's like, well, at least I can see now, kind of deal. So that's why he has no pupils or anything, and that's why he has like the gray eyes, because he's seeing through his metal powers. And even before he gets the metal powers, he still has the gray eyes, because that's what the powers are. His powers are metal, so he's gonna have the gray eyes. Just like Saber. If Saber didn't have the glasses on, I'd give him blue eyes, because that's his natural ability is water. So, and then right now I'm just doing the shading and the lighting. I do it all on one layer. I used to do it on separate layers. But then I just I don't know. I kind of wanted to streamline it into just one layer. I did just call that lighting, because lighting is just like, it's, to me, lighting is, it's the light that hits an object, but it's also like the shadows that it casts as well, or that the objects are casting. So the only part of that lighting would be also be like the shadow on the ground. That's still a separate layer. It works better if it's on a separate layer. But everything else, like the shading right now, and then I'm going to go back and do the lighting. So and that's another thing too, is a lot of the artists say, like, if I remember right, I think they want you to do the dark areas first, and then go back into the light areas. But I'm like, I don't know. I think in blending, I guess it works if you're trying to blend the lighting to where like the base color is only just like a like the base color, you barely even see the base color anymore. But me, I like to keep the base layer. It just works with my style. So to me, it doesn't matter if you start with the light or start with the dark. After doing both, doing the shading works better for me. So so for those who are probably wondering how how my setup is, how I'm doing this. I am using a tablet, and I have a video playing right now in the corner. Just me drawing what it looks like. I'm not gonna play too much of that, but yeah. So I have a 3-monitor setup, and one of the monitors is what I use for drawing. It's a drawing pad, pretty much. It's a small drawing pad. It's not like one of those big ones. I wish I had one of those big ones, but those big ones are mad expensive. So I'm okay with what I have, and it works. You know, it's all matters that it works. And then I got I more recently got a tablet arm for it, one of those like mountain arms that you can use to mount it to like a bed or something like that. It works. It's kind of like the arm that I have. It's kind of like one of those mounts you get for like a mountain stand for like a microphone or something. And it works. It's a little shaky, but I've gotten used to it to the point where I barely notice that it's shaking. Because I'm just so focused on what I'm drawing, I don't. It just kind of doesn't phase me anymore when it is shaking. I'm just like, whatever. So I finish up the lighting on the sword, and then I start to work on the grunge here, which I was talking about earlier. So I have to make it dirty, not taken care of. Not too much though. I think I erased a little bit of the dirt here, so it's not as prominent. It's not super dirty looking. And also a little bit here, I'll start to add some detail to the leather, so it makes the leather look a little used. The little leather grip. And then here I am adding some shading. I'm working on the shading for Ryu here. And then here is where I'm adding some grunge to Ryu's staff, and now I'm not gonna make it look as prominent here. What I'm doing is I'm adding in where I want all the grunge to look to be. This is basically just dirt, pretty much is what I'm going for. And then I go back after erasing kind of the outside there. I go back and I take a eraser tool, and then I turn the opacity down so I get this effect here. And I'm basically doing the same thing for the grip there, make it look used. And I'm just doing the shading here for Regan. And then since it's steel metal, you know, I had to do the shading. Not really shading per se, but like I had to do that like kind of chrome look to it. So I have the lighting cast down, and then like that. There's always that like kind of like that dark line. But yeah, so yeah, pretty much at this point I'm done with the characters, and then I'm just doing a background here. Doing a quick paint for the background. I don't want to put too much detail in the background, especially since that's not where I want the focus to be. And so I don't draw it out either. This is just straight painting. So first I'm gonna switch to the ground, and then I'm gonna do the sky here. Just naming my files there. Always name your files, because it just by default goes layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, because then you start to get confused when you get to where I'm at, where I have probably like 20 or 30 layers. So doing the clouds right now, they're in the snow village, the ice village, and so it's always snowing there. So and so I had to do like these kind of dark clouds. And then I'm gonna do 2 of the houses here. So the village was already kind of pre-destroyed, and then it turns into the snow village in this part of the story. Snow village. Why I keep saying the ice village in this part of the story. So again, I'm not drawing it out. I'm just painting. with a soft brush, and it makes it look kind of blurred out when you're done. And I just add multiple layers here for you know, so there's like an inside of the house, and then there's a just some shading and stuff, you know. So one's pretty much almost destroyed, it's almost gone, and then one's kind of like it is destroyed, but it's still there. You know, you can still tell. Obviously, it was a house. And then in the book, it's described that there's a lot of, you know, rubble and metal. So I figure, okay, well, the house is pretty much made out of concrete. Pretty much is what I'm getting at. So, and then to the snow, and I put another layer of just kind of white, more quick, just to emulate snow, kind of falling on top of it. And then I just do another layer with some snow falling here. So yeah, I really like the way this turned out. It was a good experience to kind of do a redraw, and I just kind of put my signature in here. This is where I ended up with. I added, after doing all the recordings I did, because this is all kind of pre-recorded, as you can tell, but I'd add some filters, which is basically just me adding a few more layers. Basically one big color layer, which is I did like a blue, like a turquoise looking blue, and then I turned down the opacity, and I put a soft light overlay on it, and then I did another yellow, and then an overlay for that, and turned the opacity down, so it's not. So you have like this overall. It makes it look more cinematic, but it also has this like overall lighting to it. You know, it's where it's like the lighting is affecting like the color of the overall place, so it makes it look cool. But I have other versions where it's like there's no filters, and then there's no snow, so you can look at the colors, the characters themselves. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this, guys. I had a lot of fun doing this. It took a while. I think it was like 13 hours, so it's a little over half a day to get done. It wasn't all one day though. It was over multiple sessions, so I think it's only because I had to do 3 characters, so the more characters and the more detail, the longer it takes. So but again, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.